Today, I'm going to be doing the 2012 NBA redraft. If you guys have been watching the channel, you know that I love to do redrafts. I've already done the 2010 and 2011 redrafts, and if you missed those videos, make sure to go check them out. They'll be linked down below in the description, as always. And just a quick reminder, if you didn't watch those videos yet, the way I do redrafts is as if they're happening in today's NBA. So the players are coming in theoretically as rookies, and I like to look a little bit at the fit on their team in today's NBA. Now, in terms of this draft class, it's a pretty good and strong one. We've got some superstars in this draft and some also stars that have contributed to winning championships since they've come into the league. So with that being said, let's get started. With the first overall pick in the redraft, the Pelicans are selecting Anthony Davis. Just like they did in real life, as you guys know, AD went first overall in the actual 2012 draft as well. He's definitely lived up to the hype of being a number 1 overall pick and really proven over his career that he's consistently been a top 10 player in the league, and especially now, one of the best two-way players we've ever seen. He has DPOY type of talent on the defensive end of the floor, no doubt about it, and his championship that he helped win this year with the Lakers is really going to help his all-time legacy. It was a really hard decision to take either him or the guy I put at 2nd overall in the redraft, but ultimately I gave it to AD because of his two-way game, and his defense is much better than the guy I put at 2. And with the 2nd overall pick in the redraft, the Hornets are going to be selecting Damian Lillard, who in the real draft went 6th overall. And you can see it was a really hard decision, as I mentioned, between him and AD, but Dame's not been the greatest defensive player throughout his career, so I had to go with AD. But Damian Lillard is one of the best scorers in the league, especially right now, and he definitely deserves to go number 2 in this redraft. He's been a top 10 player for the last few years, and he definitely should be considered a top 10 player because when he's at his best, he's one of, if not the most dominant scorer in the league. And in terms of his fit on the Hornets here, it would be really weird in today's NBA with guys like LaMelo and Terry Rozier still on the team and Devontae Graham. But that being said, he'd probably still push them back into the playoffs. With the 3rd overall pick, the Wizards are selecting Bradley Beal, just like they did in real life too. He went 3rd overall in the real draft. So really, so far, not a lot of big changes in the redraft so far, but there are. You'll see next. But in terms of Bradley Beal's placement here in the redraft, I think a lot of people might put him lower and behind guys that I've put at 4 and 5. But the reason Bradley Beal goes here for me is because he's a dominant scorer, especially now in the NBA. Last year, he averaged 30 points per game, and in my opinion, right now in the league, is a top 15 player and really hasn't got the recognition that he deserves as an all-star type of player until now. The fact that he hasn't been selected for the All-Star team in a few years is just ridiculous in my opinion. He's an incredible player who can score in many different ways and is a decent playmaker as well, and in this redraft has definitely had at least the 3rd best career out of all the guys in this draft in my opinion. With the 4th overall pick in the redraft, the Cleveland Cavaliers are selecting Chris Middleton, who in the real draft went 39th overall. So he is one of, if not the biggest steal of the draft, and the reason he's going here is in the recent years of his career, and especially right now, he's been a very good scorer who can score in many different ways. He can get to the rim, has a great mid-range game, can shoot the 3 when he's playing off ball, and has been a really good second option for the successful Milwaukee Bucks team, who all they have to do to really up the legacies of guys like Middleton and Giannis is win a championship. And now the main reason I have Middleton going this high, a lot of people have him maybe at 5 or 6 in the redraft, but in my opinion, he still hasn't hit his prime yet, unlike other guys that I have ranked below him. In my opinion, we could see him averaging 23 to 25 points per game for a few more years now, and that's why he's going here at number 4 in this redraft. With the 5th overall pick in the redraft, the Sacramento Kings are selecting Draymond Green, who in the real draft went 35th overall, another 2nd rounder and a huge steal in this draft. We all know what Draymond Green has done throughout his career. He's been one of the greatest defenders of all time, an excellent playmaker, a fantastic rebounder, and a really great role player that's contributed to multiple championships for the Golden State Warriors and played a huge role for them. Now the reason a lot of people probably have him here at 3 or 4 in the redraft, but in my opinion, he's well past his prime, and for the upcoming years from 2020 and on, he's not going to be playing at nearly the same level that he used to be. But he's still, obviously, like I mentioned, one of the greatest defenders and one of the greatest role players ever, so we have to give him credit for that. With the 6th overall pick in the redraft, the Portland Trailblazers are selecting Drummond, who in the real draft went 9th, and he wouldn't be a great fit here for the Blazers, but he's easily the best player available. They already have Yusuf Nurkic, but he could come off their bench, be a pretty good role player, and we all know that throughout Drummond's career, he's been a great inside scorer and one of the best rebounders that we've ever seen. And in the league, even today still, is probably one of the best rebounders, if not the best rebounder in the whole league. So he's the best overall player here. We have to give him credit for what he's done in the league, and he's going 6th overall in this redraft. With the 7th overall pick in the redraft, the Wizards are selecting Evan Fournier, who in the real 2012 draft went 20th overall, so he's one of the mid-round type of steal guys. And throughout his career, and especially in the recent years of his career, he's proven that he's been a really good overall scorer, a guy that can shoot the ball at a very high level, contribute to winning teams, and be a decent defender. He's definitely, in my opinion, the best overall player here, and someone that's been really good in the recent years. He'd fit in with the Wizards too, so that's why he's going here at 7th. With the 8th overall pick in the redraft, my Toronto Raptors are selecting Harrison Barnes. And I couldn't put him over Evan Fournier because in the recent years, Fournier has been the much better overall offensive player, but Harrison Barnes is a guy that throughout his career has been a very good defender and will probably go down as one of the best defenders in this draft, and a good overall offensive player who's averaged around 14 points per game and shot well from 3 throughout his career. He's contributed to a championship contending team in the Warriors, and with the Raptors here, he'd be a good fit in their team today because he could provide them some shooting on offense, and he'd fill it in well in their defensive system. In my opinion too, he's the best overall player to select here, so that's why he's going here at 8th overall. With the 9th overall pick in the redraft, the Detroit Pistons are selecting Terrence Ross, another guy who could fit in great with this team in today's NBA. And Terrence Ross throughout his career has consistently been a really good scorer, being consistently a 3rd or 4th option, a guy that can shoot a ball at a very high level. And I would consider putting him a little bit higher in this draft, as in his years with the Raptors and right now with the Magic, he was really, really good. But I couldn't put him over Harrison Barnes because Harrison Barnes' defense has been elite at times throughout his career. So that's why Terrence Ross is going here at 9th in the redraft. With the 10th overall pick in the redraft, the New Orleans Pelicans are selecting Dion Waiters, who in the real draft, he went 4th overall, so he's dropping a little bit here, and he would be going higher, but in the recent years, his production and playing time has significantly dropped. As you saw last year with the Lakers, he barely got any playing time, especially in the playoffs. But if the Pelicans here could get prime Dion Waiters just like he was at the start of his career, it would really help them and their young team to push them into the playoffs. With the 11th pick, the Portland Trailblazers are selecting Will Barton, who in the real draft, he went 40th overall. So in the 2nd round, one of the biggest steals in this draft. And really, he's been an underrated player in my opinion throughout his entire career, and a guy that I can definitely see moving up this redraft as the years go on. Last year, he averaged 15 points per game and wasn't able to play in the bubble in the playoffs for the Denver Nuggets, but for the rest of his career, you can expect him to average double digits consistently for whatever team he's playing on. So that's why he's going here pretty high, and I can see him moving up in this redraft as the years go by. With the 12th overall pick in the redraft, the Rockets are selecting Jay Crowder, who in the real draft went 34th overall, so he's a steal here. And Jay Crowder throughout his career has never really been anything special, and not a guy that gets a lot of recognition, but really throughout his career, and especially recently when we saw his impact with the Heat, even in the NBA Finals, has been a very good three-point shooter, a guy that when he's at his best can shoot around 40% from 3 and add value as a floor spacer, and is also a very good defender. He's a typical 3-and-D guy that can add value to any team as a role player, and he would fit in great with the Rockets small ball system, which they're not really doing anymore, but he still fit in well with this team because he can stretch the floor and, as I mentioned, play really good defense. With the 13th overall pick in the redraft, the Phoenix Suns are selecting Jeremy Lamb, who in the real draft went 12th, so he's not really moving up or down that much. And throughout his NBA career, he's been a decent role player who can score, spread the floor a little bit, and shoot the 3. And when he's at his best, score around 12 points per game. He doesn't impact the game in that many other ways, so he can't go that high, but he's still been a decent role player, and he'd fit in well with the Suns, so that's why he's going here at 13th in the redraft. With the 14th overall pick in the redraft, The Bucks are selecting Austin Rivers with the 14th pick, and in the real draft, he went 10th. Another guy that hasn't exactly lived up to the hype, but still makes the lottery of the redraft because throughout his NBA career, he's been a decent role player and a guy that can add energy and value off the bench. So now getting into some honorable mentions for the lottery and the busts, my favorite part of the video. So starting with the honorable mentions, we got Thomas Satoransky, who went 32nd overall. He's been a really good playmaker over his career, but not a good enough and consistent scorer and defender to make the lottery. Then we have Maurice Harkless, who went 15th overall, a guy, again, who's been a really good role player at times throughout his career, but I would take Austin Rivers over him, as I'm sure most of you would as well. And then Mike Scott, who I wanted to put in the lottery because every time I see him playing against the Raptors, he always kills them. But he went 43rd overall, and throughout his career hasn't exactly been consistent enough to make the lottery. He can be a good shooter at times, but like I mentioned, not consistent enough. Now for the busts, my favorite part of redraft videos. The first one is the 2nd overall pick of this draft, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. Yeah, so Bradley Beal and Damian Lillard were taken after MKG, who will go down as one of the biggest busts of all time and will famously be known for the wonkiest jump shot we've all ever seen. And then the other one is Thomas Robinson, who honestly I've never heard of. He went 5th overall, so back then Thomas Robinson was drafted ahead of Damian Lillard. Another crazy one. Again, my favorite part of redrafts is looking at these and seeing what type of players that turn out to have horrible careers going ahead of superstars like Damian Lillard, for example. So there are your busts, MKG and Thomas Robinson. So that is it for today's video. There is your 2012 NBA redraft. Redrafts are one of the most fun things to do and see what kind of changes happen in drafts. I have to admit, in this one, there weren't that many big changes. We saw guys like Bradley Beal, Anthony Davis, Terrence Ross, Harrison Barnes go in similar or the same positions that they went in the actual draft, but it's a cool one to look back at because we have some really big busts, as I mentioned, and we have superstars like Anthony Davis and Damian Lillard who are considered top 10 or even top 5 players in today's NBA. A very fun draft to look back at. As always, thank you all for watching. If you haven't already checked out the 2010 and 2011 redrafts, make sure to do that. As I mentioned, they'll be in the description. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I will see you guys next video.